So the band will get back together after June of next year. So this is my last year with Cooperative Extension, and I've always enjoyed the meetings out here in the field, because this is sort of a modified tailgate meeting. So we're looking for a lot of interaction back and forth, not a bunch of talking heads, and certainly not this topic. So what I wanted to do was, first of all, welcome you again and thank McCurdy Farms for having us out here. Dan, thanks a lot. And I may call on you to kind of describe some of the things that are going on here. What I wanted to do was just kind of record, which I love to do, other people's work. This is a, you know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of hold it like this, I think. I can send it. Okay, thanks. I was just going to kind of hold it so people can kind of see a little bit there. This is the data that your field scout Carlos has collected from the cotton enrolled fields. And it just basically shows here on your retention on the top, that's the top 5 fruiting positions. First position, that's your, basically on the fields, the 12 fields that he reported on are looking good. You're down around, right now I suspect a lot of fields are now up to the 10th fruiting branch. But everything is currently holding well as to what you would expect it to be. This red line represents dropping below that is a bit of a problem. So you expect it to hold about 70% right now during this period. I handed out, or I offered to you if you wanted, a chart that shows the same graph that you're welcome to take with you, because as the crop, as you well know, as the crop matures and more fruiting branches are put on, if you have a good set on the bottom, then the probability of holding the top just physiologically begins to drop off. So 70% is what we have now, but a month from now you don't expect to hold more than whatever that number happens to be, which is, could go as low as 30%. That's still okay. What I love about this system of looking at the bottom and the top, the bottom right now is basically the same because you have less than 10 nodes, 10 fruiting branches I should say. But eventually this is going to represent what your bottom set is, and that's going to manage what the top is going to be doing. What I love about this system that we developed over 20 years ago, is my guess, is that it incorporates everything the plant has seen. Water stress, other insects, whatever stresses are there, we can measure, and then we can adjust our ligas count to that. If you're not holding what you expect to hold at this time, which is 70%, and you've got a low ligas count, that's just as bad as having a large ligas count. So that helps adjust it a lot. What we've also found over the last few years is that June is the month. That's the month where ligas really comes in and impacts yield more than any other time, and it's the time when we really need to watch it closely. And our thresholds really are almost detectable levels during that time. This is work that Jay Rosenheim did out of Davis by mining, of all things, 10 or 20 years worth of PCA data that the PCAs had kept. He went through and did the analysis of it and found that, boy, June, if you don't do something, you really see a steep curve. July, it sort of sets off a little bit. It's not as important. In August, of course, the numbers and the yields, numbers of ligas and the yield don't really correlate well. But certainly in July and June it does. So the further we go, the more we get a good set down on the bottom, the better off, of course, we've got managing the rest of the crop. So again, what I love about it is the plant's incorporating all the stress out there. It's just not looking at the insect. It's really saying, here's what the plant's seeing. Did we misjudge an irrigation? Did we put too much stress on it, etc. And the numbers that Carlos has come up with over the last, this was the week of June 30th, was a little less than 1 or 2 ligas and even fewer immature. So it's a movement that's still, adults are still moving, but this particular field here, would you like to kind of talk a little bit about the field, what you saw with the ligas on this one, Dan?
Well, we sprayed it on the 22nd of June, but we had a count of 8 in one spot and 10 in the other, so we went ahead and sprayed it by air with carbine, and we put in 12 ounces of Pix, and we put in a little bit of miticide also at the time.
Okay. So a 10 count here, which is 8 to 10 count, which is a big count by any standard, any time of the year. So, and I do know that from what I've been reading on Ag Facts, that the reports coming out of Kern County and coming out of the Lake Bottom and Kings has been that it's been a tough ligas year for them. Hopefully in this area where you see that 8 count, it's a single pulse coming in from somewhere, and once you take care of it, you take care of it. Unlike apparently Westside Field Station, where they just want to hang around at that count no matter what you do. They just keep coming to help Bob in his research, I'm sure. That's kind of what I had with the Ligas kind of part of it here. Right now, from what the fields that Carlos is looking at, they're looking pretty good. I don't know if there's other applications that were made as well. I didn't have the complete records. He wasn't sure about whether or not any applications were made in some of those fields. But overall, it looks like the crop is setting well. The Ligas is in hand, and everybody is taking it seriously and watching it closely. One comment I will make, and that is I've heard people say, well, I really had a big infestation movement when they cut the alfalfa. And this area from here on up to Los Banos is an area that really has adopted the strip cutting as a matter of practice. But if you got alfalfa and you don't want those bugs to move, leave those strips for them. Not a lot, just enough. And I think it's been a great area-wide management system that kind of prevents or helps prevent and mitigate that movement back and forth, and has worked very, very well. So, if you've got an alfalfa field and you got a cotton field next to it, leave a little bit of that, particularly against the cotton field. And I think you'll find the rewards of that are going to outweigh the trouble and maybe a little bit of having to come back and cut it blend it on the next cutting. And again, we don't need to do that all season. We only need to do that when the cotton is most susceptible, which is June into mid-July. After that, it doesn't matter. With alfalfa too, just an FYI, there's been some reports of worms coming in, and with the sustainable farming system, it's focused on cotton, alfalfa, and almonds. And one of the primary, the primary agency supporting this program is the Water Resources Board. And one of the things they really want to do is see a decline in some of those products that have been found in the water systems, in the surface water. And chlorpyrifos lorsban is one of those, and it's one of the ones that we've worked with closely over the last 2 years on some statewide information about the critical use of that product. And alfalfa, there's 2 places where it really comes in. Cotton, not so much. It really is the latter part of the season when you're trying to manage some late season aphid, primarily, and cotton is the only commodity that got an exemption from EC, from the VOC requirement during that VOC period, that we can use the high VOC level to protect that crop against cotton aphid during the critical season of lint exposure. But there were 2 major uses in alfalfa. One was in spring and winter, which was obviously aphids and weevils. Then the second was in summer, June, July, for worms. And we do have good alternatives in alfalfa for worms besides chlorpyrifos. And I would urge everybody to, if you've got to use it and you've got good rationale for using it, use it. It's fine. But if you can use one of the other newer selective worm materials, switch over, because it will reserve that use of chlorpyrifos for that time against weevils and blue alfalfa aphid in the early part of the year. So we really need to take care of that tool in our toolbox. And if you got alternatives, it's really, really important that you consider those alternatives. And I think alfalfa summertime is one we could really do a good job of reducing that. And as members of the sustainable farming systems, of course, you've agreed whenever possible to do that. For those who are enrolled, you probably got a copy of the decision support tool output that Marcia and Jenny did. If you haven't seen our tool on our website, look it up for cotton, alfalfa, and almonds. And it's a really nice way of summarizing everything that's in that pest management guidelines. You can go through by a pest and it'll lay out what all the best management practices are, what all the products are. You can go through, click off everything that you want to use or don't want to use, and get a really nice report on it. You can save that as a PDF on your smart device, in your pocket, or at your desk. And it's linked immediately to the pest management guidelines. So if you want to know what we mean by a strip cutting alfalfa, you click on that button, it takes you right to that place and tells you. If you want to see what all the different chemicals and products are doing relative to beneficial insects, bees, water quality, It's all right there. It's easy to get to. So if you haven't seen the decision support tool, I really urge you to take a look at that. And we can look at it. You can look at it right now because it's really set up nicely for smart mobile devices, as long as we've got a cell tower nearby. So I think that's everything I had. But I'm going to throw it open for questions. If anybody says that's not what I'm seeing, or that I have seen that, or there are other things that we need to talk about, Bob's going to follow up, I know, with the general. Take any questions you got about the general condition of the crop. But Dan, again, I wanted to say I appreciate you being here and taking a look at what you've got, at least even on this front row here. It's looking pretty good, even though you had a movement in.
Yeah.
A movement in. You didn't get them settled in, and they don't have families yet, so that's good.
Pete, you talked about some of the alternatives for alfalfa mid-season
For control?
controlling worms.
Yeah, Coragen, and which is a product that's pretty much registered on everything. And then its counterpart slips me right now, but I can find it because I've got the website. Coragen and anyway, very selective worm materials. Plus, there's an opportunity to do early cutting if you need to take care of some of those kinds of things. You can do it early cutting and just bundle things up and get them out of the field type of thing.
You still use belt, right? Still?
Belt, that, thank you, see? That's why you bring smart people in. Yeah, Belt and Coragen are both registered on alfalfa for that purpose, as well as cotton, for mid-season worms. All right. Well, who's next on the list?
All right.